And thank you for joining me. The introit for this Sunday is from Psalm 28. The Lord is the strength of his people. He is the saving refuge of his anointed. To you, O Lord, I call, my rock, be not deaf to me, lest you, if you be silent to me, I become like those who go down to the pit. Hear the voice of my pleas for mercy when I cry to you for help, when I lift up my hands toward your most holy sanctuary. Blessed be the Lord, for he has heard the voice of my pleas for mercy. The Lord is my strength and my shield. In him my heart trusts, and I am helped. My heart exults, and with my song I give thanks to him. The theme of this psalm is the theme of listening and speaking. One of the most frustrating things that can happen in a relationship is when you engage the other person in a conversation, all you receive is silence. When that happens, it seems like they do not even care enough to acknowledge the question. Psychologist John Gottman published his findings from a study of his in a book called The Relationship Cure. He took a number of couples and observed their behavior with one another, taking special note of how the couple responded to the other's bid. A bid being a request or even a desire to have a conversation with the other. A bid could be an inquiry, how was your day, to a request to do something. Let's go for a walk. What he discovered was that the health of the relationship was connected to how the couples responded to the other's bid. And he categorized those responses in three general ways: turning towards, turning away, and turning against. Now, the healthiest relationships were the relationships where the primary response was turning towards. That is an acknowledgement of the other, even if the bid could not be acted upon. Now, the other responses were troublesome in relationships. Turning against was a negative or nasty response to the bid, and turning away was an intentional ignoring or even a deflection of the bid. Now, what would you guess was the worst response for the health of a relationship? It was not turning against, it was turning away. Silence is the response in a relationship that will destroy it the quickest. The psalmist asks God not to be deaf to him, to listen and to hear. The psalmist asks that the Lord not respond to him in silence, because it is silence that will push the psalmist to despair. And do you sometimes feel like God is silent to you? And if you do, why is it easy to come to that conclusion? And perhaps we sometimes feel like God is ignoring us because we've not received a response in the way we want or in the time frame we wanted. Perhaps he waits to give us an answer and we don't want to wait. Or perhaps he's already given us an answer. The psalmist acknowledges the answer of God. He says, "For he has heard the voice of my pleas for mercy." Are you afraid of your life or for your future? Maybe you ask God to step in and do something, and all we seem to get is silence. But as we have already predetermined the answer that will satisfy us, God is pointing us to a time he did step in and do something. He points us to Jesus, where God himself came and took care of our lives and secured for us a future that will never end. His response to our pleas are always able to be heard. However, it can be very hard to hear him, to hear those responses. There are a lot of distractions. There is a lot of noise that attempts to drown out the response of God, and we are constantly tempted to take God's seemingly silent response to us as his indifference. But our God is not silent. He's constantly reminding us of his love and his forgiveness. And even though he may not be directly speaking to us, he is speaking to us through his word, or even through others reminding us of his salvation, others telling us that our sins are forgiven. And if we find ourselves frustrated at the lack of God's response, perhaps we're not listening, because God does indeed respond to us, and we always know where to find his voice. His voice is in his word. Thank you for joining me.